So we are joined by Andrew Villeneuve with the No on I-517 campaign. So go ahead with a 5-minute presentation.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Thank you. So thank you for having me. I'm Andrew Villeneuve. I'm the founder and executive director of the Northwest Progressive Institute. Representative Gail Tarleton represents this district as NPI's president. I also serve as a state committee man from the 45th District to Washington State Democratic Central Committee, and I was formerly the second vice chair of the King County Democrats. And I'm on the steering committee for No on 517, which is to my latest initiative, sort of co-written with the help of Eddie Agazarm, who's known as Associates. Eddie is a signature gatherer who, well, it's actually more accurate to say that Eddie is a former signature gatherer who now tells other people how much money he'll pay them if they gather signatures for him. So he runs Citizen Solutions with Roy Ruffino. That's a signature gathering business. So they have put together this initiative called 517. We like to call it a stealth initiative because most people are not aware of it, even now that it's on the ballot. The initiative was conceived back during the spring of 2012, and it was filed on April 5th, 2012. It went into the signature gathering stage around the same time as 1185. You all remember that initiative from last year? That was the last 2/3 initiative. So 1185 and 517 were in the field at about the same time. And petitioners who were carrying 1185 were told to carry 517 as well and gather signatures in equal numbers or they'd be fired. 1185 had about $1.2 million in contributions. Maybe it was about 1.3, 1.4 million. The exact figure escapes me. Most of that money was from oil companies and major businesses in Washington State. PDC has a list of the contributors. The leading contributors were BP, ConocoPhillips, Shell, and Tesoro. Same as in 2010 with Initiative 1053, which was the last 2/3 initiative. There's been a series of them. So 1185 started off, I think, I want to say late April, maybe early May. Signature drive only lasted a few weeks. So 517 started about the same time, and it's our belief, we haven't seen the forensic accounting that would prove this, but it's our belief that 1185 and 517 be gathered at the same time, that after the signature gatherers refused to collect in equal numbers without pay for 517, it's our belief that they started using 1185 money to pay for the 517 signatures. Because we can't figure out how they were able to collect all these signatures, basically when the signature gatherers were refusing to collect. I think the arrangement they ended up coming to was 75 cents for the 1185 signature and then 25 cents for the 517 signature. And we have some affidavits from petitioners who have sworn that this is how the arrangement worked and this is what they were doing. The 1185 campaign wrapped up just before the signature deadline in early July, and then the 517 campaign kept on going until they had enough signatures. I think they probably wrapped their signature drive a few months later during the midst of election season. So 517 then got signatures turned in early January of 2013 this year, and then the legislature did nothing with it, so it's now on the ballot this year. And it has 3 main provisions. The first provision is that it doubles the amount of time that people have to collect signatures for an initiative of the people. And that's sort of like the main first provision. The second provision is that you can't do decline to sign activities within 25 feet of a petitioner. There's sort of like a free speech zone for the petitioner only, freedom to petition only, and then the people who want to do a decline to sign campaign have to stay a certain amount of feet away. So essentially you can't walk up to someone and say, oh, don't sign that. You can't go up to them because the petitioner can say, oh, harassment. Really, harassment's already illegal. I don't see the point of trying to make harassment against petitioners in general illegal, when in fact harassment against anyone is already legal. And the Secretary of State has told us that the majority of complaints they receive are from people who are being asked to sign petitions, not petitioners. People who are being asked to sign petitioners to fill petitions that they've been harassed by the petitioners. Last provision of 1185 that really gives us pause is the provision that deals with local governments. Local governments would have to put local initiatives or referenda on the ballot, local propositions, even if they're illegal, invalid, or unconstitutional. So let's say you live in, I don't know, you're all living in Seattle, I guess, but let's say you live in a city like Shoreline, which is smaller, not necessarily as democratic, and you want to vote on red light cameras, but your initiative is illegal. Well, under 517, you have to put that initiative before the people for a vote, even if the results would not be legitimate. So that's, in a nutshell, why we want you to oppose 517.
Great, so now we'll move to follow-up questions, up to 2-minute answers to each of these. I have a follow-up question. Anybody else? So, as I mentioned to you before, we went on camera. The yes side was given an opportunity to interview with us. They were given a time slot. They were planning on coming, and then they ended up declining. So I'm wondering, what arguments are they making for it, and then what is the counter-argument to those arguments?
All right, so I think the 3 arguments you're going to hear are people should have more time to gather signatures, and that's good for democracy. You're going to hear that argument. Another argument you'll hear is that petitioners and petitioning need protection, and so that's the whole reason for making harassment illegal, but again, it's already illegal. And then you're going to hear that this is especially an argument that I think you're going to hear them trot out, some progressives make, that there have been initiatives at the local level that have been disqualified or not made the ballot because they weren't properly written, properly put together. And so this initiative makes sure that those would get a vote, as opposed to allowing a city council or a county commission to block them. And so our response to those arguments is, first, if you want more time to gather signatures, you can file an initiative to the legislature and get 10 months already. You get more time with an initiative to the legislature. You don't need to double the amount of time for an initiative to the people. Second, really the whole point of doing year-round signature gathering for initiatives to the people is so that Iman can go directly to the ballot, and he can have petitioners working in Washington year-round who are not even Washingtonians, they're out of state. So they just come in from California, let's say, and then collect. But they'd be able to work in the state year-round. So that they would have sort of unlimited access, all the events you can think of during the fall and winter. Just imagine doing a Christmas shopping and Tim Iman's latest initiative for lower taxes is shoved in your face. That's what you can expect under 517. And then with regards to, again, the harassment is already legal. I don't see the need for us to establish 25-foot zones around petitioners. It's the people who are asking, people who are complaining to the Secretary of State's office, people who are trying to go about their business and go into the stores who aren't able to. And then finally, again, with the local level, why do we want invalid initiatives to be submitted for a vote? They should be valid to begin with. So I don't see why we need to change that.
Great. Other questions from the executive board? Elizabeth?
How's the validity of these initiatives evaluated in advance?
You mean at the local level? So just to give you an example, my hometown of Redmond had a city initiative on red light cameras. It was actually the first initiative in Redmond history. And the city council took a look at the initiative, and they went, executive board meeting, executive session behind closed doors with their lawyers. And the lawyers said, this initiative is invalid, it exceeds the scope of the local initiative power, and we should not spend tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars putting it on the ballot to be decided when in fact, it's illegal, it's not properly written. And so they basically took the signatures and then they said, it's kaput, we're not putting it out there for a public vote. And Tim Iman sued the city, and the city won in court. The courts ruled that the initiative was invalid, so it did not have to be put before the people for a vote. 517 attempts to override those court rulings. So the validity is determined basically by the city or the local government. They will take a look at the initiative. If they can't find anything wrong with it, they'll have to put it before the people for a vote. If it clearly exceeds the scope of the initiative power, then the city or the local government right now can say, no, we're not going to spend our taxpayer money, because the city has to pay for the election. Someone's got to pay for it. And it's going to be the city taxpayers who pay for it. So if the initiative is invalid, the city can say, well, we're not going to spend our taxpayers' money on this basically beauty contest or a straw vote or whatever you want to call it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to put it on the ballot to begin with. City actually has to pay the county elections division, a county auditor, send them a check, pay them a certain amount of money for each election that they do that's for that jurisdiction, that city or that municipality, whatever it is. And so if you have to pay for a straw poll that really is not going to have any effect because the initiative exceeds the initiative power at the local level, why have it at all? Why have it on the ballot at all?
So, for initiatives that has happened to, have the people who are promoting it gone back and had another look at it and advise it? Has any of those happened and then gone back onto the ballot?
No, not usually, because usually the subject matter itself is simply a subject that the initiative can't deal with.
So it's not some technicality or?
No, it's like there's an attempt to, let's say, get rid of red light cameras, and the state law and so forth says that a city, city councils make the determination on red light cameras. That's explicitly in the law. It says, city councils have the authority to do this, right? That's something that's left up to them. And so you can't go to the ballot with an initiative and override the city council or take the power out of their hands because state law doesn't let you do that. Now, at the state level, of course, people have the same rights as legislators. The Constitution says that. So at the state level, there is no law that exceeds the initiative power. There is, of course, such a thing as an unconstitutional initiative, but there's no such thing as an initiative that exceeds the scope of the initiative power at the state level, in the sense that you can't do a certain kind of initiative that would change state law in a way that legislators could change. Anything that legislature can do, the people can do through the initiative at the state level. But at the local level, it's different. There's certain subjects that are off limits to the initiative, basically, and state law would have to be changed in order for that to be different. But what I and others are saying, doesn't matter what the initiative is, it should go to the people for a vote. If it gets the signatures, it should always get a vote. And so what we're saying is, it's not that people are losing the right to petition their government, but it's a question of, should taxpayers have to pay for elections that have no results? It's the same deal with these advisory votes that we have at the state level. You actually have 5 of these before you, I think, this year. And I don't know if you'll be taking positions on them. I hope you'll take a position to maintain them. But essentially, we're having 5 meaningless votes on revenue recoveries or revenue increases the legislature already approved. And the results mean nothing because it's a non-binding vote.
Other questions? David, go ahead.
When you started speaking, you said that this issue had been sort of a stealth and kind of snuck up on people, and I'll confess it snuck up on me. So I was wondering where I might go to get additional information. Is there a brochure? Do you have someplace where your talking points are laid out? Is there a takeaway or a handout that you could leave with us today? That's my question.
Okay, so we have a website, no517.org, and then we have a handout that I'm sending out electronically. I didn't want to print up a million paper copies because go away in the environment, but you'll get a PDF tonight, and you can circulate that or print it out yourself if you want. What I find is that when I print a big stack, I end up going around with more than I need, and then sometime they have to be recycled because they don't end up all getting out. So what we have is an electronic version. I'm happy to send that out. That's a 1-pager.
Just so if I understood what I thought you just said, it's being sent out to us?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
You can send it to me and I'm happy.
Yes.
I don't remember seeing it.
Do
Do you have a copy?
I recommend downloading the text of I-517
You can also do
and
that.
printing it out. I have it over there. I read it this afternoon.
It's right here?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to forward it, send it to me. I'm happy to
Happy
forward
to
it
do
to
that.
you. Or the website
No 517.
No 517.
Very short.
Sure. Clayton, you had a question?
A comment and a couple of questions.
Very, very brief comment, please.
The text increases the time from 10 to 16 months. So it's not technically, arithmetically, it's not.
It doubles for an initiative of people,
Ah,
because right now it's 6 months. You start in January and end in July.
okay.
For initiative of the legislature, it's currently 10 months, so we go to 16.
The text includes language about the nature of government, which I think is worthy of your comment. it says that initiatives passed by the people, it makes government an initiative process. That's the long and short of the language in the text. My question, my little question is, I come out of PCC, I see somebody collecting signatures. I say something rude regarding displacement of the signatures in time and space with respect to Mr. Hyman. Now, am I in violation of law only within 25 feet? Or must I go 25 feet away and shout, you know, my suggestion as to displacement of the initiatives in time and space?
So I think I understand what you're saying. So I'll refer you to the appropriate section of the initiative here. If you have the text, then you'll want to go to new section, section 2, which talks about establishing protections for signature gathering. And you'll notice that it says, for purposes of this section, interfering with includes but is not limited to pushing, shoving, touching, spitting, throwing objects, yelling, screaming, or being verbally abusive, or other tumultuous conduct, blocking or intimidating, or maintaining an intimidating presence within 25 feet of any person gathering signatures and any person trying to sign a petition. Our interpretation of this is intimidating presence can mean whatever you want. So if a petitioner feels, quote, intimidated, someone's maintaining an intimidating presence and you're violating the law. Now, I've been in situations where, I've been standing next to someone and talking to them and, clearly they weren't intimidated by my presence. But you can see how someone, could feel like your presence there would be intimidating. Now, these words, intimidating presence, are not defined in the initiative. And of course, that's a cardinal sin, actually, of law writing, is that you're not supposed to use vague terms that aren't defined, because then you have to leave it to interpretation, right? The court's got to decide, what does that mean? So there are a couple things in here that aren't defined, and that's one of them. Another one is the words public building is not defined. So that the initiative, we think, allows, we have a legal opinion from former Justice Phil Talmadge, which he says he thinks public building means any public building. So, imagine petitioners going to high school football games and roaming the stands, can't be kept out, or they go to public libraries and they, catch you as you're looking for a book in the row. The librarians can't get rid of them. They'll have to be there if they want.
Is your campaign, are you mostly just gathering endorsements against, or are you doing other, and debating at events? How are you informing the voters, I guess?
We're going to raise a lot of money. A lot. We've already raised over $40,000 for research, and we'll be raising more. We have raised money from the Seahawks, Mariners, the Sounders,
Okay.
the Fred Meyer, Costco, Winco. A lot of retail stores are very concerned about this because you see, this is sort of the element that I may not have touched on, but it violates property rights. People don't have the ability to control what's going on in front of their property. It's open to the public under this initiative. That store managers would not be able to get rid of hostile, aggressive signature gatherers, because the signature gatherers would say, oh, we have, 517 says we can be here, and we get this 25-foot zone, and we think they, might even be able to go into the stores because they're open to the public. So that's part of the problem that all stores have with the initiative, is they feel like it violates their property rights. They're not going to be able to control what's going on in front of their stores. Walmart, for example, has a process whereby you can sign up to be in front of their stores and so on. So they have it sort of regulated. Well, under this initiative, they probably won't be able to regulate it anymore. So the initiative really takes away their ability to strike a balance between property rights and freedom to petition. It's not that these stores are against the First Amendment, but they feel like if they don't have the ability to keep the signature gatherers in line and be respectful, because a signature gatherer can literally stand in the middle of the doorway, right? And it's sort of like the whole, with free speech, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater rule. There's limits. You can't just say whatever you want. Well, likewise, a petition, you can't just be and do whatever you want, because at a certain point, you infringe on other people's freedom. And that's what the initiative doesn't take into account, is that there are people who don't want to be bothered or harassed, about signing a petition. They just want to be able to go about their business and not have to be, pushed on to say, oh, can you just sign this, just a few moments of your time, just sign this, get on the ballot. People don't like being harried and interfered with when they're trying to do something. So we think this initiative just got way too far.
Great, so we're about out of time. If you want to take about 30 seconds just for closing statement.
Sure. So thanks again for meeting with us. The campaign appreciates it. The No on 517 campaign is a broad, diverse, and growing campaign that encompasses business, labor, environmental organizations. The State Democratic Party is on board, having taken a position back in February, and we would welcome your support as well. The campaign is going to try to let Washingtonians know about the consequences of this initiative, that it goes too far, it violates property rights. It would give Tim Eyman twice as much time every year to run his initiatives. Really, it's about making it easier and cheaper to do initiatives and preventing people from doing decline to sign campaigns and forcing public votes on illegal initiatives. So we would urge you to vote no and to support the no campaign.
Thank you very much.